We're going to talk Christmas. Christmas time is here. Happiness and
You're murdering it.
You want to try?
No. That's why I'm not.
All right, I'm just going to tweet this out about our new topic. So, I guess in general, just Christmas. This is our last podcast before the holiday, which is in a week from today. Christmas, not the holiday, but one of them during our season. What are some of your standout, I guess, Christmas memories? They don't have to be gaming related, but of course, with us, it'll probably be intertwined with video games. But you know, what's some? Give me one or two of your ones that like are memorable for either being really bad or good, Christmas wise.
I don't actually remember a whole lot of bad Christmases. I always really enjoyed it. I don't.
And video games related to Christmas, yeah.
I mean, I definitely remember, getting my first my NES, which was amusing because I think at that point in time, I think my parents were buying it because they knew they would have fun with it too. Here's something that I would have a blast with and enjoy. But we were. There was not a lot of money in my family growing up, and I don't remember that Christmas there being a ton of packages under the tree, but I do remember getting the NES, and I remember my parents playing and enjoying it. So, it was definitely bought as a family thing. I also remember the first time we were playing Super Mario Brothers.
Okay.
And I'd never seen it before. I mean, this was Christmas 86, 87, so
I got mine
87. I think 87. But I hadn't seen it, because, I mean, the knowledge of this stuff wasn't around, and I was one of the, they weren't widespread on my block yet.
87 to me is always the point of difference for the NES.
Yeah, 87 is when I got it.
NES is when Christmas 87 is when a lot of kids started getting it.
Yeah.
Or 87 in general, yeah.
I remember we're playing, and I mean, I'm a kid, my parents are teaching me things as I grow up, there's a toadstool growing in that ground, don't eat that toadstool. I'm like, all right, fine, I won't eat these poison mushrooms. It's a good call, Mom and Dad. So I remember my parents booting up Mario, and they're trying to show me how to use it, and they're running along, and I hit the block, and I remember the mushroom popping out. I remember I freaked the fuck out, and I was like, don't touch the mushroom, it will kill you. And I remember
where did that come from, that thought?
The fact that my parents had taught me that mushrooms were poisonous. That's what I was getting at. So my parents have taught me that mushrooms are poisonous. Uh-huh. So I see this toadstool, I freak out. And I remember freaking out to the point where my dad jumped over the mushroom. And he looked at me and he goes, "Are you sure?" I go, "Yes." So for the first day, my parents played without trying to touch the mushrooms at all.
So even when you were 4, you were that anxiety-ridden that you had to...
That's 5.
Whatever.
But yes.
So you want to see what would happen if you touched the mushroom.
So I remember the first game I truly loved on that system, and it doesn't necessarily hold up for me over time, but I still like it, was Duck Hunt, because I could grasp Duck Hunt. It was pick up the gun and point it at the screen and shoot. So I remember going to bed, and as my parents often did when they discovered things in video games when I was a kid, they would wake me up after I'd gone to bed, and my dad pulled me out. My mom and my dad are sitting there, and it's the beginning of World War I. They had just reset it, and my dad's like, "Here, I want to show you something." He runs up and he hits the mushroom, and the mushroom goes out, and I'm like, and my dad touches the mushroom, and he fucking grows huge. And I was like, whoa.
So you didn't read the manual when you got the game?
No, I
read them. I always read my manuals.
I mean, Christmas, when I was a kid, was a busy day. It was, it was get up and do the gifts. And then my parents pretended they were Christian for a while. So we went
pretended they were Christian.
We went to church for the first few Christmases I can remember.
They pretended to honor Jesus
They pretended. They're like, the parents will be into it. So yeah, sure, we're Jesus.
It looks good. It looks good socially.
Right. I mean, it was the 80s. Religion was a big social thing in the 80s.
Was it?
Yeah, in the 80s?
I think it's always been a big social thing.
Okay. Especially in the 80s. People loved Jesus.
They wore the piano ties
to
church.
So we went to church, and then we went to both my grandparents' house, and I probably did not play with the NES or even really interact with it much that day.
Okay.
So anyways, that's one of my number one memories, is thinking that the mushrooms were going to kill you, and my dad had to convince me that it was a good thing to get.
Okay. I want to stay on the NES Christmas of '87, which again was sort of like the year a lot of people found out about it. Nintendo in '86 only had 30 games for most of the year. They sell mostly only the black box games, and
Yeah.
they had about 10 third-party games that came out. Like Ghosts and Goblins, 1942, Chubby Cherub, Ninja Kid, Muscle, a few others, Athletic World. Actually, no, that was 87. Karate Champ, and a couple others from Data East.
Rampage, maybe?
No.
No.
I have them all up there. Actually, that one shelf has most of them right there.
I'm trying to remember what else I got that year.
Commando. Anyway, the whole point was and tag team wrestling. The City Connection wasn't,
Yeah.
but the rest of those were. The whole point was not a lot of people knew about it yet. The newsletter was just getting started. Fun Club newsletter. The first two, no one had it for the first two, and it was literally just a newsletter before it was a little mini magazine.
Yeah.
So once you got to 87, though, it started to creep back in to video games, consoles. People were like, "Oh, what's this? Check this out." And my friend Kevin had it. I just met him, in school. He just moved there I forget from where he moved. And I went over one day, and he had a TV downstairs in the basement. Remember, they had the wood around the TV where they framed the TV. One of those ones was probably like a 32-inch, and downstairs in the basement. And remember, his parents made steak with A1 sauce, mashed potatoes, and peas. We ate up. We ate up on the bar, and Kung Fu was on the TV. We paused it, and that's my first NES memory. I'll never forget that. And that was probably like September or early October, before Christmas. And so from that point, I had to get an NES. And so I go in the newspaper. That's when you see the advertisements for they were like regional electronics stores. Like Tops was one in Jersey. It was called Tops with like 2 Ps. Stuff like that. They always
The trading cards?
almost, or just without. They always had Midnight Madness. They'd always have like these midnight sales. Not Black Friday. They'd had Midnight Madness sales.
I remember sales.
You remember
like
those?
That, actually, yes,
They'd have them on like random Saturdays or
Right.
Fridays in like this early December. And so they'd have like, oh, get a color TV for $50. It was like, oh my god! And then they'd have like one of them to get you in there and try to sell you a refrigerator.
I
So
remember.
anyway, so they always had answered that, and I always go, hey, yeah, look at this Nintendo, I want it. And so I did that every week. And then, I finally I was very excited, but this was my first home console. I played games on the computer on the XT we had since I was 5. I played games on that, but this was a video game console. This was like, wow. And just because my friend had it. My friend Kevin had Kung Fu, he had Duck Hunt, he had Top Gun, maybe a couple others he had, I remember. But then I got the console set, that one, the control deck set with Super Mario Brothers, and then my uncle got me Ikari Warriors and then Spy Hunter. Those are the games I started out with. I know I wasn't afraid of the mushroom at first. And it's one of those things just in general when you're a kid that I don't remember ever believing in Santa Claus. I really don't.
I figured this might come up.
But by the time I was probably 5, I don't think I even believed in him, just because I guess I was always inquisitive as a kid, and I always was like, how is it the time to go around the world and go down everyone's chimney?
Yeah.
I said, we don't even have a real chimney. How does he get down there? Not just that, my parents were too lazy to rip the Kmart stickers and Bradley's stickers off the G.I. Joe toys I'd get, so it was like, I figured it out.
My parents did the best they could to keep that. And the fun thing is I actually, because I was thinking about it today, just because it's the holidays, but I do actually have 1 or 2 clearly formed memories where I thought that it was real. I remember, not to sound sappy, but the magic of it, like waking up and walking out in the living room and seeing all the toys and being like, wow,
yeah,
what happened here? And I remember loving that, but I mean, much like you said, I think I believed in Santa Claus for as long as I did, which wasn't very long, because I wanted to, because it's a cool thing to think about when you're a kid. But I mean, I think any kid who can start cognitively reasoning is like, no, that just doesn't happen. I mean, I think by the time I was 6, which would have been like the year after the year after I got my NES, I don't know, somewhere in there, like 88 was probably when I was like, yeah, no, and other kids in my class had started to figure it out too, and I never blew it for anyone because it like I said, it was fun.
The magic was also to say the magic to me was always still there, just because. Maybe this is getting into too much personal thing. I didn't get many presents or gifts from my parents throughout the year. Like, it was rare for my dad to come home. It's so rare. I can remember the 1 or 2 times where he did come home with I even remember what he bought me. One time he came home from either a business trip or something, and he stopped by a toy store, and I think I was sleeping. He walked in, and he got me, I don't know why he picked it out, but he got me a He-Man figure, and the He-Man figure he got me was Adam. Yeah, before he transformed into the He-Man.
Yeah.
Which is strange. But my dad didn't know. His heart was in the right place.
Right, yeah,
he got me Adam, which so I always loved that figure because of that. He has like the nice velvet.
Yes. Yeah, the best.
He got me Adam, and he got me Han Solo Return of the Jedi trench coat version from Endor, which is still one of my favorite figures. And that's, to me, again, that's one of the things I'll always remember because he didn't do it that often. So I got 1 or 2 gifts for my birthday and then Christmas. So Christmas was like, okay, I'm getting like 10 presents. So I remember not being able to sleep, and then 4 a.m. I'd get up and walk out, and under the tree there'd be presents.
Yeah, no,
and then my parents were so and this is the reason why I never believed in Santa. My parents wrapped the gifts differently per person. So my sister was wrapped in one, and I remember getting the gold wrapping one year. So I was like, I don't think Santa would do that.
Right. Sure.
So I remember like even getting excited because like I see the gift in the shape of the Tiger LCD because it was always in the blister pack.
Right.
So like, oh my god, I got a Tiger LCD. It was probably Ninja Gaiden or Double Dragon. I was like so excited for a Tiger LCD because I never had a Game Boy. So the magic to me was always there because I knew like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the magic in that sense, sure. I'm just referring to like the whole the actual magical aspect of Santa,
whole,
right?
Like,
Yeah.
He's a
The
magical
magic
creature.
of Christmas was always there too, and it's the same sort of deal. Like I said, not a lot of money growing up. I didn't get a lot of gifts throughout the year because not because my parents were mean, they were great, but because they would scrimp and save, but they would make sure Christmas was cool.
Sure.
And just because you mentioned waking up early, that's something I always remember doing. But I do remember one Christmas, and this is not really video game related, but if we're just talking fun stories, I remember waking up like 3 a.m, and I had already known Santa was not a thing, but my younger brother, I believe, still did.
Okay.
My parents must have just finished putting like the trees, the toys underneath the tree. I remember waking up. I remember going back out to the Christmas tree and seeing everything and being like, awesome, and coming back, and my brother was awake because we shared bunk beds. My brother was like, did Santa show up? And I'm like, yeah, Santa showed up. He's like, sweet, can I go look? I'm like, yeah. So, my little brother was like, footy pajama, goes pitter-patter out in the living room, sees him, and like, he's like, yeah. And comes back, and he's all excited. Like, he is amped up, like he just had a pot of coffee. Like, kid's ready to go. He's like, oh, I want to open presents. So I'm like, we can't open presents yet. So I remember this being about 3 a.m, and smart as I'd like to think as I was as a kid, I remember thinking I was pretty clever. I'm like, well, all right, it's 3. So my brother and I sat there until like 4. I'm like, 4 o'clock, why not? And I burst in our parents' room. My dad's like, go back to bed. And I'm like, until when? He's like, at least 6. And I'm like,
Wow.
Okay, so
you did that? You stayed up there for 2 hours?
Yeah, my brother and I stayed up from like 4 a.m, and I think we gave my parents until 7. And my brother just sat there in our room, and we played board games with a little reading light on. And we played Life, and we played what was that one? It was an 80s game with a bounce. It was like Topple. We played Topple, and I remember after we played one game of Topple, I was like, okay, we can't play any more Topple because it makes too much noise. And then I think we started a game of like Monopoly Junior, and by the time we got bored of that, it was time to open gifts.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, that's a good one.
We used to. My dad was never good at getting up, so like he'd always be like, the last few years I lived at home, I'm in my 20s, obviously at that point.
Yeah.
I didn't even care about Christmas at that point. Once I got past like I'd say 12, I didn't care about Christmas that much anymore, just because I sort of found out my price limit my father had set on me, and never increased it for inflation. So that was always great, because now the past like 3-4 years, there's been no inflation really. The past like 5 years, it's been pretty stable actually. But from like 85 to 95, there was a lot of inflation.
Yes.
And the fact that I was getting the same amount, which is about, I'd say, the $130 price range.
Yeah.
140. Yeah. I was getting less presents every year.
I like how you have it at 130 or 140. It's not 150.
No, I calculate.
You're not going between 100, 150.
No, it was a certain limit. It was a certain limit, and I started to figure out because I was like, one year I got like 2 Legos and 1 Nintendo game. So I was like, okay, that's about that range. I was smart enough at 9 to realize that.
I was thinking about this too. The reason why I don't think there were any disappointing Christmases for me was because at a young age, I as well figured out the price limit. So I don't know if I was actually working prices at because I wasn't, not at age 6 or 7, but I was like, if I ask for a board game, an action figure, and an NES game, I will get those 3 things. If I ask for 3 NES games and 2 board games and 2 action figures, well, then I'm not going to get what I really want because they're just going to randomly pick.
Specify.
Right, so I have to specify. So very early on, I learned how to perfect the Christmas
My
list.
parents, to my dad's credit, he would say, "You're not getting all those. You got to pick." Like,
oh yeah,
what are festive, Dad? You know, it's like, nah, you're not getting all those. You got to pick.
My parents would always be like,
"Which one you want? You want that one or that one?"
My parents would always be, even when my brother was around, and they knew that I didn't believe in Santa, but if my brother was around, they'd be like, "Well, you know, the elves can't do all that work. You know, like,
They can't solder together all those NES games for you. It's either TNC or Skate or Die. It's not both.
It's one or the other."
Oh, that's funny. Then, of course, I really realized that by the time that, like, you know, Zelda 2 came out, that was one of the infamous chip shortages or whatever, where literally ordered it from Sears, in the nice Sears catalog, ordered it for Christmas, and didn't get it until April. I talked about that to the first Marathon How By.
You actually talked about it on the podcast because
I did
someone asked you to recount the story, and you did.
That was an awful Christmas because of that. That was the worst Christmas ever. That was 89. Christmas of 89, I believe that was. Or Christmas of 88. Because then the game came officially out, I guess, early 89. But officially, if you look at NES, it'll say like late 88. You could get it at Toys R Us, but it was limited for whatever reason. I think because it was the demand. That's what they said it was a chip shortage. But that and Super Mario 2 were so hard to get in late 88. You just couldn't find them.
Yeah, I remember I couldn't. I remember because I think I wanted Mario 2, and I remember not being able to
You just
get
couldn't
it.
find it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the worst ever because I got three or 4 gifts only. And of those 2, one I didn't get till April, and I was crying. By the time the UPS truck would come by in mid-February, I was crying. Tears. So much that I finally gave up. I was like, you know, I was like a prisoner of war. I was just like, there's no hope.
Despondent.
Then finally, for 2 weeks, and then it finally came. Then I was happy. That was that, and then I got zero gravity cliffhangers. Remember the race cars, the slot cars when they were still popular?
Oh, the ones that would go up the
Zero
wall.
it was the first one going. I was like, oh, it worked like shit.
My buddy had those. They were awful.
It got stuck. It would get stuck.
Or it would just fly.
Or it'd fly off the track and get stuck.
The sweet spot on the trigger
was like so sensitive. Yeah,
was a millimeter.
It was really bad. So that was returned. I don't remember what my dad got me in lieu of that. He may have just given me the cash. You know, so like.
Go buy some Lay's.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see how like this is why I have all this shit now. You can see you don't have to be a like psychology doctorate student to see why I have all this stuff. But the fact of the matter is that Christmas I think I ended up getting like 2 Lego sets, which I loved. The castle system, I loved them. But that was like it was rough that Christmas. And from that point on, I was sort of like.
The castle system was one that I got. It was probably the only Lego set I ever got.
I got the big black evil castle and the smaller gray one.
I had the smaller gray one.
Yeah.
And I remember my brother growing up, my younger brother was the Lego kid. He was the one who always wanted Legos.
Sure.
And he always, the thing was, is I never paid any mind to Legos. Never wanted Legos.
I love Legos.
And then every time my brother got a Lego set, and him and my dad would sit there building it all day, I'd be like, this is the fucking coolest thing.
Cool.
The coolest one I think my brother ever got was he got the big pirate ship that had, you could go below the
deck. That was
deck.
like mid-90s. They started coming out with other stuff.
I would say early 90s.
That was the first non-castle space or city.
Yeah,
it started branching out a little bit.
Yeah. I don't think it was like, I don't think it was mid 90s, but it might have been. It was
early
definitely 90s though. Yeah.
But I remember up until the early 90s, for 40 years, 30 years, it was just castle.
I loved the castle
city
set
and space.
when I had it. I thought
it started with city, then they went to space, and then castle. But yeah, I had the Robin Hood one. I think I got the Robin Hood next year. For Legos, I only had about 6 sets. I had a lot of the little ones. I had the catapult. Remember they cost like only $4? The little catapult one. I had that.
I think I had that catapult. Actually.
Yeah, the little yellow things you'd hit, and then I had the jousting set. It was one of those like.
I had the jousting set too. It was like that. It was green. It was the green base. It had the fence. And it had the 2 horses with the different color metal.
And you had the king and the queen, the princess. Sitting on the chairs.
I did have that. I did have that.
That was like they probably cost like $12 back in like 80 and $9.90. So like that. It was like that big.
So like Vonnie and I do like Toys for Tots every year, and every once in a while I'll go to the Toys R Us just for shits and giggles, not because I'm actually looking for anything. But I gotta tell you, the thing that I am most tempted to buy that I never actually do are those like $12, $15 Lego sets.
The medium size one.
I'm like, man,
the smaller
yeah,
medium.
Not one that would take up like a much space on my table, something that I could snap together and put on my shelf. Just like I like to buy like the little SD Gundam kits, the ones that take like an hour and a half to put together, just because it's fun. And I'm like, I never buy them, but it would be fun to do.
You're at the swap meet. Let me know. I'll pick up a Lego set for you.
Yeah, just something.
I picked up their Harry Potter Quidditch set once, not in the box though. But
if I cared about Harry Potter, and I think it's probably, fans don't kill me. It's probably fine.
I like Harry Potter.
I know. I'm sure it's fine. I've just never read it.
I saw the movies,
and I haven't seen the movies.
The last few movies are really good. 5 was my favorite, I think.
And I don't think I'll ever get time for the books, but it does seem interesting. And Quidditch actually does seem like the most interesting thing. It seems like an interesting sport. I was actually bummed when
You said it seems like an interesting sport. Like for real.
When they made the video game and the video game got horrible reviews as expected, I was kind of upset because I'm like, that I would actually take that home and play that, like, if it actually worked out well. That looks amusing.
You're a closet Harry Potter fan, Ian.
I've never read a book, but sure.
You look like him, so I mean...
The homeless people used to call me that all the time.
It's called Harry Potter?
No, I'm serious. In Ocean Beach, Red used to call me Harry. Even when Red was on his worst drug binges. Merry Christmas, everyone! When Red was at his worst, Red would always yell from, like, blocks away, Harry! And I'd turn and he'd wave to me.
Oh,
yep.
Such a nice homeless drug addict.
Vagrant.
While I tweet out about Q&A time coming up soon.
Yeah. What time is it? We should probably move on to Q&A.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock.
All right, Q&A.
But yeah, Christmas time is coming. Christmas time is near. What do you ask for this year? What do you ask for?
I didn't ask for anything.
Isn't it kind of depressing? By the time I got to my early 20s, I basically said or at least 23, 24, I had a decent amount of money because I started to work full time, you know. And I was like, all right. My parents were like, what do you want? I'm like, well, nothing, because I mean, if I really want something, I can buy it for myself at this point. I felt weird asking, and plus it was sort of like, again, it was just weird. So I always relied. My mom would always like put in my stocking like little toiletry items, like little travel toothbrush and nail clippers. Like, this is stuff I actually needed, but would think about buying myself. So that was actually cool.
Yeah,
that she would do that. You know,
my parents would do
gum.
Started doing stuff like that for me too. Like, that's actually, it's funny that you mentioned gum. It wasn't gum, but you know, as I got older, because I got a job, and I've mentioned this on, I think, the podcast before. I got a job when I was like 14, so I also as well started buying stuff very, very for myself when I was very young. So my parents got creative. They knew I liked candy, so they'd go out and buy really fancy chocolate and stuff, and just stuff my stocking full of fancy chocolate. I
loved the little like the Christmas peanut butter cup.
Right.
Tree. Stuff like that.
Sure. And then Toblerones are something that I used to always get in my in my stocking. Something that I get pretty much every year for Christmas are everyone. I love the peanuts. That should be probably known at this point. Then they're doing the full run, and every year for years now, my grandmother gets me. Every year they do 2 books. And then they do 1 box set with the 2 books in it. My grandma gets me that every year, and I look forward to it every year. I purposely don't buy it just so, you know, I have a Christmas gift.
Well, which book is it?
Peanuts.
Okay.
They've been doing the yearly runs. They've
every year
has been publishing
a full anthology.
Yeah, so they're already up to, I think this year they'll hit 90. So like this year I'll get more Peanuts books. Yeah, they're almost done, and I've got everything up to.
They're hardcover?
Yeah, they're hardcover.
Like the Calvin and Hobbes one I have, like the anthology.
Yeah, I've read 30 years worth of Peanuts.
Wow.
Yep. So I know a lot about Peanuts.
That's why you love it.
And then when you're a kid, you kind of hate gift certificates, right? Because you want something that day. But now I love them. Like,
they're great.
Because I buy stuff, my mom doesn't know what records I want, so she just gets me a gift certificate for the local record store. She calls up Rick and says, "Hey Rick, you know, have a gift certificate ready for Ian when he walks in the door." And then I just I buy records for free for a day.
So I think my parents gave me, or my sister did, a $50 GameStop card from last year. I still have it. I never used it. I should probably use it at some point.
You should. But yeah, now gift certificates are great.
They're great.